attempted ceasefire deal we've been reporting upon. I reckon all the hostages should be released all at once, not drip. Drip couldn't agree more. Here's one for you. Steve says, my daughter went to Cambridge and did engineering. She's a genius. She emigrated. My son went to Imperial College London to do maths. I beg him to emigrate before it's too late. This country is over. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. In the last hour, we hear that a ceasefire agreement is on the table. Delighted to get on now, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, good friend of the show, former NATO and Royal Navy commander. Chris, good evening. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm well. Happy New Year to everybody, very belatedly.
Thanks, mate. So we started the show with a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas allegedly being close. Sources told us that there was one on the table. We are being told that Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement, but we're also importantly being told that Netanyahu's government will vote on it tomorrow. His office has just said that there are still several unresolved clauses, which he hopes to resolve in the next few hours. So it looks like Israel and Hamas at this moment have said yes. President-elect Donald Trump says that we have a deal. They will be released shortly. This, of course, the man who said if it's not done by Monday, I will unleash hell in the Middle East. Looks like he might get his way, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, this is an agreement in principle. We haven't seen, really, apart from the leaks, anything concrete about what's going to happen. As you know, there's a staged hostage release. And my concern is that Hamas are not going to be able to produce that many hostages, to tell you the truth. And they may be flattering to deceive here.
But also whether those hostages are alive or sadly dead.
Yeah, I mean, there are supposed to be 94 of them. I think the Israelis think there are 60 left. But at the end of the day, these people have been barbarized. There's a lot of questions here. How you can have a ceasefire without Hamas being utterly destroyed, what security guarantees Israel will have, who's going to actually reconstruct Gaza. So I've got
What's going to happen in the long run? The Palestinians have one side of an argument, Israel has another. I understand that every news network is reporting this because a ceasefire deal to end 15 months of trauma and real war and humanitarian disaster in Gaza needs to end. But you're absolutely right. Somebody said to me earlier, well, you know what, Hamas has been destroyed. The ideology hasn't been destroyed. The ideology will rise up in 5 minutes.
Well, I'm afraid the ideology and the practices of Hamas are run through the whole population of Gaza. There's no question about that. You can't get it out of the system. The only way you're going to do that is to actually say, look, we can't live like this forever. We have to live together. I mean, one of the things that I was saying 5 years ago is that Gaza could be the Beirut of the Mediterranean. It's got all the geographic advantages of being right in the middle of 3 continents. And if they chose to make it a real financial centre like Dubai or Abu Dhabi, they could. But I'm afraid the ideology, the hatred and all that sort of thing, and dare I say it, the propaganda associated with who Gazans are. At the end of the day, most Gazans are from Egyptian and Jordanian stock. There's no such thing really as a Gazan. Even the Palestinian identity only goes back to the 60s. So we need to get out of the mythology of this. And you mentioned it earlier, Jeremy, and so did Benedict. You know, you need to get into the history of this and start talking realities here, not negotiating around mythologies and propaganda.
And I think that's the point. Obviously, Donald Trump's made a big thing that if this isn't done, I'll unleash the gates of hell. Obviously, when Biden remembers that he's the president, he'd like some sort of legacy. Obviously, Netanyahu, let's be perfectly honest about Benjamin Netanyahu. I suspect when this war ends, he's toast anyway. I suspect that Hamas will also have many, many questions inside Gaza to answer. And of course, it's great. It's absolutely great if that happens. But will it stick? I agree with you about that call, that text actually about the drip effect of the hostages. Will both sides keep to it? That's not me being negative before people jump up and down, because like everybody else, and we had some quite candid conversations when this kicked off 15 months ago to the dismay of certain people. But war's not nice. But unless you deal with terrorist not around a table. I mean, listen, I come from a world where you don't negotiate with terrorists, so there you go. But until people understand that those mad mullahs in Iran have been paying for these proxy blimmin' terrorist groups, these cells, be they the Houthis, be they Hezbollah, be they Hamas, and cut off the supply chain and weaken Iran and weaken them, it isn't going to go away, Chris. And so, however horrific it has been, and it has been horrific to see what's gone on, and of course, Palestinians will say one thing, Israelis will say the other. We all want peace, but it has to be a lasting peace and a peace that is viable and able to be achieved, right?
Yeah, if you deploy violence, you've got to expect to get violence in return. Yeah. I think the people who are probably quaking in their boots right now are the Houthis, because everybody wants to get them now, because they've been attacking international shipping. It's not just they've been attacking the Israelis. So if I'm the Houthis, I'm going to be running very fast to try and get an agreement before President Trump gets in. The fact of life is we've got far too many people, quislings and apologists in the West, who want to make excuses for these violent people. At the end of the day, we need to say, if you use illegitimate violence, whatever cause, then you need to be held to account for it. And part of the problem you have all the time, you were talking about Northern Ireland earlier. You know, I spent 3 tours trying to stop people murdering each other. But I know that if I'd been captured by the IRA, they'd have tortured and killed me. It's in the middle of the United Kingdom, for heaven's sake. And there would have been people that would have cheered it as well.
Can I ask you about the other thing that's quite relevant today, this Chagos Islands deal? I don't know if you've ever been to the Chagos Islands, have you, on your tours?
Yeah, I've been to Diego Garcia probably half a dozen times.
Right. So this is an island off Mauritius.
It's about 300 islands, of which Diego Garcia is probably the most important one.
I thought he was a player for Barcelona. It tells you what I know. Go on.
Well, Arsenal, I think, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do the votes.
No, it's a really important base. It's been critical as the link between the Indo-Pacific and the Greater Middle East. It's played a starring role in 2 Gulf wars. It's absolutely a strategic base. It's also a nuclear facility.
Is that just for America or for the West?
No, for America and the UK. We've got a nuclear submarine berth there as well. Currently, Mauritius is a non-nuclear power. So if it says we can't have our nuclear submarines there, then we're not going to have them there. It is the most idiotic, strategically illiterate, Jeremy, that we should be even thinking of giving them away.
So, let's talk about strategic illiteracy, because, of course, what's happened is he made a big thing with that ridiculous idiot, David Lammy. I'm going to give it away. I'm going to give it to Mauritius, who are quite close to China. I'm also going to give them £9 billion, whilst freezing pensioners and upsetting farmers. Today, he's ditched attempts, another flip-flop from Starmer, to get his Chagos Islands deal signed before Donald Trump is inaugurated on Monday as the 47th president of the United States of America, which says that he's running scared of maybe losing the trade deal or that special relationship. But because Trump would just explain to me, as a military person, what in the name of God goes through a prime minister's mind to give something away that I've had described to me as central to a maintenance of the order of the world order. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, it is. It's right bang in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And if you want to send ships or aircraft or any sort of supply, right in the middle of the lagoon of Diego Garcia, Jeremy, they have pre-positioned ships with military material on. And that's in case there's a crisis in the Middle East. They sit there all the time. Tanks, armored vehicles, ammunition and things like that. It's absolutely critical to the way the free world will wish to defend itself. And if you allow China and its allies in there, then they're going to be all over it. The other thing is, it's the biggest marine protected area in the world. So, you know, we're going to see Chinese fishing vessels, I suspect, there as soon as you like. The problem is, Jeremy, you asked the question, Benedict said, you know, they care about so-called human rights and decolonization. They don't care about our strategic interests, this Labour government. And I'm afraid to say they're not getting good advice. When you've got a national security advisor who actually is negotiating this deal and not able to say why it is we're giving it up and why it is we're having to pay $9 billion. That would get you 3 aircraft carriers, by the way, $9 billion.
Wow. Wow. And do you know that the KC, who's representing the Mauritian government's a friend of Keir Starmer's? I mean, the whole thing smacks of everything.
One of the things I've been saying, Jeremy, is that power corrupts, and a 156-seat majority corrupts you absolutely.
An absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Chris, this man is a legend, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He too has a young child. We don't sleep at all. Chris Parry.